This episode is brought to you by Global Comics. This is the comics reading app that is changing the face of independent comics. You can go to Global Comics and browse thousands of books from hundreds of publishers, including Dark Horse, Image, Dynamite, AWA, and even individual Kickstarter creators as well. Or you can purchase a monthly or even an annual pass and read all the comics you want for one low fee. For 33% off that annual pass, use the code GCXBJKicks at comicsaredope.com/global. That's comicsaredope.com/global. All right, guys. So I usually say this, my next guest needs no introduction. And that's because my next guest is a recurring guest, the first returning guest to the show. So thank you for that. But if you did not listen to episode 37 of the podcast featuring Chris Robinson, then you missed out on a lot, including the early days of his career, editing at Marvel, and really all of the work that went into the now Eisner winning reprint of the All Negro Comics 30th anniversary hardcover. So that all happened, and you need to go back and listen to episode 37. But today, Chris has returned, and we're talking about his writing because, boy, is he writing a lot. So we're going to get into all of that process, upcoming projects, and things that you need to be on the lookout for, including Werewolf Frankenstein. I was reaching like I had a book, but it's just my iPad with a picture of it. But welcome back to the show, Mr. Chris Robinson. How you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me. And speaking of having it, I have a copy here. This is the foil variant that I did for the Kickstarter version, and this is pretty limited. I think there's only 200 or so out there in the world, but it happened to be the one that was nearest in the closet in my stock closet. So that is the one I pulled for this interview. But yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So guess first things first, congrats are in order. I could not have planned that better, right? I put your episode out right before the Eisners. The Eisners come and you come home with the trophy. Like, how does that feel?
Man, it is incredible. It is. I still don't have words. It was already like a month or so ago, and I am still sort of processing it. It's like a huge honor. It's like, the thing that we the industry spoke, and I'm so proud, and I'm shocked and happy. I'm happy for myself. I'm happy for the other contributors, because it's, I share in this in the project with them, and I'm so happy for, the original creators. Like, those five gentlemen deserve as much kudos, if not more, than any kudos I've gotten. And I'm happy for the backers. Like, it's just that, like, you could tell why I've been processing it for over a month now. But yeah.
I think it's really special that project won, right? Like, especially given everything that you went through to bring it to life. We were even talking about, like, okay, trying to find a publisher, maybe get wider distribution, right? So it's a project that for many seemed overlooked. So to have the Eisners, which, we get the same speeches about the Eisners, the Grammys, the Oscars, right? Like, these are generally viewed as popularity contests among their respective industries. And, they can often be out of touch with what's going on the ground. And so it's got to be validating and heartwarming to be able to get that kind of support for this project in particular. So I'm very glad you guys went home with it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna, I'm not superstitious, but I will. Is this like not the first person to be on your show and then win an award like immediately after? I mean, there's correlation is maybe causation. I don't know.
Word. Well, listen, that works for me. We'll keep it going. Yeah. But yeah, man. So congrats again. Now we're here today just to talk about because a lot of stuff we talked about last time was firmly in the past. Even at the point where we had our conversation, the Kickstarter for the ANC hardcover had passed about a year. But you've been doing a lot since bringing all that stuff to life, and I really wanted to catch up and just talk about that and where things are going in the future for you. So how has life been for you in the last year and a half or so?
It's really it's a unique thing. I think I talked about this last time where I say I really like study and like watch the moves of the industry, and I look backwards and I look sideways, and I really try to like be as dialed in as possible. But it's like there aren't not that many modern day, like not that many people make the switch from editorial to writing,
Mm-hmm.
and then even fewer like do it successfully, right? So it's like it's a strange thing because if you look at the early days of comics, it's the editors were the writers basically.
Yep.
It's a much more prevalent thing, and I always remember uh, you know kind of looking at the even up until like the 90s, or actually probably the 90s is when it really got abused. Like the 90s is when you would you would have guys hiring each other to write each other's books, and um it's but it's in the modern era it's just like not a thing, and it's probably actually for the better. I think that editorial is one skill set and writing is a different skill set, and they definitely overlap a little, but like I think the best way, if you're going to really do either really well, you kind of have to compartmentalize.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, last time around, we talked about sort of your journey. And if I remember correctly, you said, like, I thought I wanted to be a writer, but got in the door and found that I was like good at editorial. Right. And now
Right.
you've kind of jumped ship back into that writer's headspace. You talked about compartmentalizing. What was it about creating in this way that you missed and felt like you needed to get back to?
I think that so just to like back it up a little bit, like when you're the editor, you exist in this position where you're neither you're in control but not in control, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think the best editors do do a really good job of like empowering the creatives on their books, like making them feel like even when it's not true, making them feel like their book is really important to the line and very unique, and all which when you're editing 80 titles a month or whatever, it's like you kind of understand that, hey, they're not all special in the way that you want them to be, right? But the creators should feel that way regardless, right? Like you
Right.
definitely don't want to work with somebody who's just like, hey, I'm just pumping this out. Um, but in terms of like as an editor, I would try to do that, and now now that I'm like I feel like I've done everything that I want to do editorially. I feel like winning an Eisner, like I think it's a good this is a good place to stop.
Right.
Um, but like writing wise, like it's like I said, it's a different muscle set where now you're I guess what I'm saying, I guess what I'm learning is that like empower now that I'm like working with artists like even more closely,
Hmm.
I get to figure out how to like empower them. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
it's it's comics is so great, man, because it's like it is the most team sport, creative journey that you can do, right? Because everybody needs everybody. I mean, I'm sure people in film and music, everyone feels this way probably, but like I don't know, for some reason, comics is much more, you know, of that jazz where it's like people are doing something and you react to it, and you're gonna make the best comics are people reacting off each other and lifting each other up and all this stuff. So I you know that is where I find myself currently. Trying to uh, basically become the best cheerleader in this other way.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm already off on tangents, but like, you know, there are writers out there, and there are writers out there who are very singular about the way they create things. You know what I mean? Like they see they basically have the artist kind of like doing like executing their vision, whatever.
Yeah.
That is, if you ever see a script of mine, which I could send you one, but like uh, I should throw one out there online actually. But they're very collaborative. They're very like
Mhm.
suggesting things, and it's like try it from this angle. I do a lot of my work as much as the writing. It's even though it's called writing, like I do a lot of the work on the back end. Like once I get those layouts, I'm doing a lot of stuff there.
Mhm.
When the line art comes in, I'm doing a lot of adjusting there. So it's really like my first draft is you know first drafty. I'll say.
Got you. Got you. Yeah. No, I think it's cool that comics are as collaborative as they are. Just in that, I mean, maybe it's because I come from music, right? But it very much reminds me of that. Like, I remember being in college, and like it can be singular for sure, right? Like, you've got your rapper producers. Like, I can sit in a room and make a beat, and then maybe go out, eat some lunch or whatever, come back, write a verse, and like I could make a song myself, right? But uh, all right, personal anecdote, because we're here doing asides anyway, right? But I
Absolutely.
was uh freshman year of college, I was a part of a rap crew called Chocolate City. And I technically wasn't part of them. Like we just all rolled together, and like the one guy, the guy who was like leading the group ended up on academic probation. So when it was time to record their second mixtape, I ended up having those duties. So I executive produced this mixtape. But some of the most fun times is like the six of us trying to record each other in this dorm room closet, and then like, oh, you should say this or you should say that. Like it's just a completely different experience than sitting in a room with headphones trying to come up with something. And both are fun, both have their merits, but you're right. There's something about being able to just kind of jam with others. But then the other thing about comics is like in music, people get linked together at the very least from like the audience, right? Like when I can't think of Donnie Cates without thinking of Ryan Stegman, right? Like
Yeah.
when I was talking to Priest, he described letterer Willie Schubert as his voice, right? Like so like you get sort of married in real ways
Yeah.
to your collaborative partners. And I think that's something that does feel unique to comics.
Yeah. I think it's part of it is that there's just so few people, right? Like a comics team is 5 people, right? Like,
Mm,
and uh, it's much easier to see the layers, right? Or the audience can, if they want to be, right? If they can be much more cognizant of the layers, then I don't know. I think you have to have. I think your musical IQ has to be much higher to sort of understand, to be able to pick out, what's what's the engineering versus like what's actually being played and like that
yeah,
type of stuff. Yeah.
for sure. For sure. Um, so yeah, so uh you mentioned sort of it's kind of like I guess the way what you're describing to me is like when maybe you and all your friends work at Best Buy or something, and then you get promoted to manager. And now it's like, yeah, you're all friends and, you might go out on lunch breaks together, but eventually it gets kind of weird because it's like you're technically their boss. Um, and you're not getting to be in the weeds or, hanging out with them the way you were before? Like, is that how it feels to be an editor versus a writer?
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Honestly, I think having been out of it long enough that I can see the difference. Like, definitely people acted differently and treated me differently as an editor than they do now.
Mm.
I'll tell you what, I used to get used to get responses to my text messages much faster before. Um, but but yeah, it's like, you are, and I think I sort of, I don't know if it was this interview or the previous one, but like, you operate in this gray space where you're creative, but you're also like an avatar of the company.
Hmm.
So you are, yes, you want to tell the best, Hulk story that there ever could be, but at the same time, you're protecting the deadline. You're also protecting like whatever the corporate thing is at the time, like whether there's things that we don't want the Hulk to be able to do, or he needs to look a certain way for um, synergy, right?
Hmm.
Um, so you have these outside influences that are, unfortunately, I was about to say equally, but unfortunately more important than the creative at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you want to keep your job at least. Um, so yeah, but no, as an editor, like, I always envied, you know, the flexibility and the like camaraderie that the writers had with the rest of the team. That was much, that was different than the relationship I had with everyone else. Like, everyone liked me, and I would think that people would say like they had a great time working for me, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's just a different thing. Like, you're a little bit more in the trenches with the rest of the creative team than you are with the editor.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, well, let's get into it then. So, um, you've got your writer's hat back on, right? I don't know if you even wear hats, right? You got beautiful, luxurious hair, but you've got your writing hat back on, right? Like what you sent me
Yeah.
was Werewolf Frankenstein, which is it's being published by Zombie Love Studios, which is Rodney Barnes' company, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Nice, nice. And first of all, this book it looks great. Um, it's been crazy on this side on the family front, so I haven't gotten to like really sit with it like I want to. But I guess let's just talk about, I guess, the process of putting this book together versus maybe some of your more buttoned up work from your former days. Like, how was it assembling this?
Yeah. It was. I am lucky in that I have all the editorial experience, because putting the book together is the easy part to me. That
Mm,
is the, like, I can get it done. I know how to get it done. I know all the pieces and all the benchmarks we have to hit to have a finished comic, right? Um, the hard part, and I'll say this too. So okay, so 2020 is when I sort of start transitioning out of Marvel into other stuff, and
mm,
I, you know, very delicately start dipping my toes in the idea of like, well, now that I'm outside of this organization, I can, start. I can also write too, as well as edit, right? Um, and I spend a little time sort of like trying to do both. And you know, I think I was able to um, start trying a lot of things and
mm,
realizing I don't have the skill to execute certain ideas, concepts, things I wanted to do, that I'm like, this is a really great idea. I like this outline, whatever. I'm not there yet. You know what I mean? In terms of, I couldn't write this as well, as good as it deserves. So there's a lot of ideas that I started and then was like, let me put a pin in this, let me put a pin in this, let me put a pin in that. And then I was like, I need to do something that I can not be super precious about. Not to say that I'm gonna, like, hack it out, but just like something I'm not. I need just something a little bit I can wrap my head around a little bit faster, right?
mm.
Um, to get the reps, basically, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I start coming up with the concept of like, okay, well, let's do, let's use some public domain stuff to like, get me going in a direction, and then
Mm,
I'll start zigging once the bicycle is moving. So I start with, you know, obviously the same, set of stuff that everyone thinks about: vampires, werewolves, Frankenstein, and then at some point I go, why hasn't anyone matched these characters together in the way that I end up doing, right?
mm,
And you know, I want something that people can instantly recognize as like a thing they like. And I think as a joke I said to my wife, like, just like Werewolf Frankenstein, and then that was like, wait a minute, that's actually hasn't been done, and maybe I should do that, right?
right.
So once I had that piece of it, then I start sort of going like, okay, what does that even mean? Am I doing my own fresh take on Frankenstein? To how much lore am I bringing in? Whatever. So to make it easy on myself and also new readers, which everyone would interacting with this would be a new reader, I always tell people I write it in a way that whatever version of Frankenstein you're familiar with, it's compatible with this.
Mm,
Obviously, legal reasons, it's based on the one from the book, right?
right.
But and I often go back to the book in terms of like, if I ever need some little bit of detail, whatever. But it's also, you'll see when you read it, like there are elements in there that you'll go like, that reminds me of the movie, or
Mm,
reminds me of you know this adaptation or that adaptation, like, this, oh, that reminds me of the Wrightson version. You know what I mean? Like there's
mm,
little bits that kind of like call out to those things, but not in a way that you have to do a lot of homework or be like, a Frankenstein super fan or something.
nice.
Um, but yeah, so it starts from a place of like, I need something that I can write easily. Yeah, easily, I guess, is the best way to
Mm,
put it. Just like something that I can, you know, cut my teeth on and really feel like it's not, it's just it's not a huge undertaking. And then it sort of, once I start hitting on the mashup idea, then I start mashing up other Universal style monsters, right? So this is not a spoiler because it happens in like the first 5 pages, but Invisible Dracula is part of the book. In the next iteration, the sequel,
mhm,
Bride of Werewolf Frankenstein, which is in the back of the book. So again, not a spoiler, but there's another combination that I won't spoil here because I haven't shown it anywhere yet. But
mm,
that's a very fun. Like if you're familiar with the universal canon of monsters, like imagine who else hasn't been mashed up, and you can maybe narrow it down to three or four. Um, but yeah, it basically is me needing to get better at storytelling, and so this was my path to do that.
So on that note, right? Like I'm curious, like how do you like so if I go to the gym and I pick up a 50-pound
Mhm.
dumbbell and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do one arm press, right? Like it's very
Okay.
apparent because I'm shaking, right? Like I can't lift this weight, right? But I imagine that, and I mean, even I guess to take the analogy further, right? Like I could sacrifice my form, like I could probably get the weight up the wrong way and perhaps hurt myself or something, right? Or I can pick up lighter weight, right? But I imagine it's difficult to find your limits as a writer, but you seem to be very self-aware about them. Like, how do you know that you don't have the skill set to tell a particular story?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great analogy because it's exactly what I would say. Like there were things I wanted to do storytelling wise that I couldn't execute in a real way.
Mm,
So what does that mean? Like in practice, I would be writing, and then I would be like, great, that is a scene that speaks to a concept I had, and oh, wait a minute, there's 10 panels on this page. That's bad. That's like a bad. I mean, there are people who can do that, but it's not what I would call effective storytelling.
Mm,
It would be, um, yeah, you couldn't lift the weight, or in this sense, like tell the story in a concise or exciting way
mm,
that would that people want to go along with, I'm, I I like my storytelling. I think I'm pretty good at it. However, I know that you know, I'm not incredible. Like I would say that my strength is not I'm an amazing writer. My strength is I have fun ideas, and I can get a pretty above average comic done, and um, you know, and I think it tickles the like entertainment, you know, parts of your brain where you know it's it's a fun to, it's a fun way to kill some time. You know what I mean?
yeah.
I don't think you would probably ever get a comic from me that is like, something that'll make you cry, or would change someone's mind about like a political issue or anything like that. Like that's not
Mm,
the type of writing you're probably never going to see from me. But what you will do is like, you know, have some popcorn time, and have a fantasy fulfilled, that type of thing.
yeah. Yeah. No, like even just thumbing through this issue, as briefly as I did, I think that's the way I would describe it is just as an exciting comic. Right? Like, I don't know. I read a lot of comics these days, and there are books that are insightful. There are books that'll make you think. There are books that are heartwarming. Like there's a lot of different types of storytelling in comics. Um, but some of the most fun books are just like, I don't know, just feel like people playing with toys. Like, and it's just like, oh, what's going to happen on the next page? And that's the vibe I get from this book. Like I said, I haven't really had as much time as I'd like to sit with it, but just the opening like sort of pages here. Um, don't want to spoil anything, but I mean, we know the crux of like Frankenstein's monster, right? Like he doesn't want to be a
Right.
monster, right? And this Frankenstein is also a werewolf who doesn't want to be a werewolf, and like just the way that's established in like the first 2, 3 pages is just really cool. And it's like, oh wait, I don't. I'm not even a horror guy. Like I might say that more often than I say how late I got into comics on this show. But it's like, all right, here's the conflict. This person is this way, doesn't want to be this way, and we got 60 pages. What's going to happen? And here we are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very simple, that this, that's again, like this is the appeal to me. It's like it's a very simple character with desires that we all are pretty familiar with and we all identify with on some level, right?
Mhm.
And um the werewolfism just sort of compounds compounds it in a
Yeah.
fun way. And I think that I always, I don't always, the times that I've talked about the book, that I use the term like gothic adventure. One of the call outs that I throw to people that is like, if you were a big Gargoyles fan, which,
Mm,
having listened to the Greg Wiseman interview, like we are we're card carrying members, right? You and I right here. So like
right.
it has that appeal to it where it's like, you know, uh, um, these guys are tortured, but like in a fun, adventurous way.
Right. Right.
Right.
Now, this book like really is um it just looks great, right? Like, which I guess is not the compliment to give to the writer of the book. But what I will say is that the pacing is on point, like just sort of the way the scenes are drawn out. Um, like it just feels good. Like that again, I'm just skimming through because I've got it sitting in front of me, right? And there's no page that I've gotten to that's like, oh, this one looks like a chore to get through. Like the storytelling is really cool. Um, and it feels exciting the whole way. Like there's obviously people got to sit and talk at certain points. Like there's got to be exposition at certain points, but this doesn't, this never feels like, all right, sit down for the lecture. Like that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think I am not a person who enjoys wordy comics, for better or for worse. And I will say that. Well, first of all, let me hop back to what you said. I will take the compliment for the book looking good because being able to like identify. I think I talked about this on the last. Like, I'm pretty good about like identifying like good artists. Like,
Mm,
and so Mark Yarza is a fantastic artist from Spain, and Steve Cannon is a fantastic colorist from Miami,
mm,
in Florida, and you know, I they had never worked together before. I put them together. I obviously write towards towards Mark's strengths,
mm,
and I know sort of like when to pull back, when I can sort of go into those like dumps of like, here we got to really get into his motivations and whatever. We got to do all the setup here on this page because there's a lot of room, and we will not have time later, that type of thing.
mm.
So I think all of that speaks to the visual language of the book in a way that, like, man, I'll tell you what, not to keep talking about the editing stuff, but like when I would always make a habit of having the book done early, right? Whenever I could, right? As often as
Right.
I possibly could. And then I would send the art to the writer, and I would say, here's all the art, whether it's, fully colored and done, or just the line art or whatever it was, here's your last opportunity to punch up the script,
Mm,
right? And punch up is like, A, make it better, but also like know when to cut stuff,
yeah.
because, you know, you don't need the character to say I'm sad if he looks really sad in the panel.
Right.
Um, and there would always be a percentage of folks who would go, yeah, got it, and then they would send me the script back, and it would be the exact same script that we started with, and I'd be like, oh man, you didn't get it,
Mm, yeah.
and that would be unfortunate. And that's like something that I have the benefit of having essentially like thousands of reps. Like, I didn't write the comics I edited, but like
Mm,
I see mistakes, and I've been through the paces on all these things. So like I feel like my IQ on all this stuff is like much higher. So even though this is like, my second or third comic, really, like, as writer on paper, it's actually like my 500th, sort of.
right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
um, so yeah, I think it reads a little bit better than what might look like a third attempt or fourth attempt. Um, but yeah, no, the visual language is super important. It's the whole reason we're there. Like, you know, again, there are people who who do the opposite of what I'm saying. So take everything with a grain of salt. But like, I don't read comics for the words. Like, I don't. You know what I mean? I read them for cool art and like pithy one liners,
Mm,
and that's about it. I don't know.
yeah. Nah, for sure. For sure. I'm sitting here. I did an overview today of the Superman versus Muhammad Ali tabloid because I had never seen it at that
Mm.
size or with the original colors, right? And
Oh,
it's
cool.
like the story's cool. Like, sure, there's alien invasion, and somehow Muhammad Ali is better than Superman to fight this alien invasion, and that's cool. But what I find myself stuck on is just the artistic choices, right? Like, what are the outfits the background characters are wearing? How does Muhammad Ali look so good in every panel, like from
Yeah.
every angle that Neil Adams draws him in? Like, Superman wearing boxing gloves is a fun thing to see as well, right? But the stuff that sticks with me really are the visual cues. But I think if we were here for the words, we wouldn't be reading comics. So it's not to say the
Yeah.
writing isn't important, but it is to say that the story and art have to work together well to be memorable.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think too. Oh, and also let me throw one more disclaimer comment before we move on.
Mhm.
Um, I think anybody, if you, for those who have read it and who will read it in the future, Werewolf Frankenstein, I would call it like kind of on the wordy side.
Mm,
Hopefully when you read it, people don't feel that way, but it is kind of on the wordy side, and that is also by design because I needed to break myself of the idea that I couldn't write captions and like I feel like I always had dial my hand like a good handle on good dialogue and where and how to drop that into panels and stuff like that. But captions where you're just out there and people are reading your words,
mhm,
like there was a little bit of like apprehension on my side of like, ooh, can I do that? And
mhm,
again, I have the like training wheels essentially of being able to like do the captions in the style of like Mary Shelley in a
mhm,
way.
mhm,
You'll see it. It's like written like the book where it's like a journal essentially. So again, like I'm using training wheels, but it's another way of me like essentially practicing. I hate to call it practice because I don't want to get on a podcast to talk about practice, but like it is sort of like practice.
So,
Also like practice. I don't want to like I'm not making people spend money on practice. It's a good book,
right.
but you get it.
Yeah. So, with that, the question that comes to mind, right? Like the idea of sort of a debut, right? Which this isn't your first comic, but it's like getting up there to a bigger audience, right? Like you would think that there's this goal to do like the biggest and best thing, right? And but you're talking about the idea of we're just getting shots up because I know that after this there's going to be another thing and then another thing, and I just want to keep getting better, right? Like it's the lie that LeBron tells about the regular season. Like he knows, we all know that all he wants is that championship, right? But at the end of every game, it's just like, yeah, we just got to play a good quarter of basketball. I'm like, bro, like, come on, come on. But 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 no, the idea of like the getting the reps up, getting the shots up, like as you're describing, even just breaking yourself with the captions, it reminded me of I can't remember what the name of the song is, but there is a song that Lil Wayne recorded when he finds out that
Huh.
like Jay-Z doesn't write his rhymes. So he just like decides to empty out like all the rhymes in his rhyme book on this one song. And then it's like, all right, from henceforth, I no longer write songs. I'm gonna punch in or freestyle or whatever. Um, but it's like the idea that I'm going to do this as a practice for myself, but also I'm gonna release that to the public, right? Like walk me through how that goes. Like, what is it about
Yeah.
getting it to an audience that is important for the creative process?
I mean, hmm. Well, I mean, there's so many things. This is okay. So, uh, I, I, I think this is also a music thing.
Mm,
I forget who said it. I feel like I want to say 50, but like might have been Wayne too. I don't know. But essentially, somebody said, and I'm paraphrasing someone. Um, the only way to be a professional is by putting it out. If you do it and it's just for fun, for fun for yourself, that's a hobby, you know.
mm, mm,
Um, and I do want to do this professionally. And also part of it too is I think that I'm I'm able to so in the fullness of time, right? I saw a lot. I saw the people who would send me like, "Hey, I just did a comic. I just did my first comic," and then they would keep doing, and then they would get I would someone would they would be working on like Green Lantern or something
mm,
2 years later, 3 years later, 5 years later, right? It's like the only way to go forward is the reps. You know what I mean?
mm,
Like
mm,
there's nobody gets um hired, gets that professional look if, you know, hey, I've done 1,000 practice comics, on my website.
Mm,
They get the looks and they get the reps when they assemble their little, collection of like, here's my Kickstarter book and here's the IDW book and here's, name whatever company is like. It's not even important what the company is, but it's just
right.
like I've been published X number of places, and do you want to publish me or work with me? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, so I know that um, there's almost it's almost more important to have the reps than to actually, man, I'm saying some crazy stuff. It's more important to have the reps than to actually be good in a sense, like,
yeah.
because editors are this is, again, I'm like really cutting into the, I hope I'm not ruining like the magic for people, but like editors don't have time to read every
Mm,
every your entire catalog of work. So
yeah.
they'll just see that you did five, five books for six companies, and or I guess that math doesn't work, but like five books for four companies, and they'll go, great, this guy must have something, right?
Yeah.
And you might get the work, right? And then two, from just like a practical sense, like on my books, the ones that I make for my, that I put together myself on Kickstarter, wherever, everyone gets paid. I will never ask anyone to do something for free. I might ask a favor and say, hey, could you do this at, half your rate or whatever, but it's not going to be like, no one does anything for free for me. So like, just on a practical level, like if I'm spending money to put a book together, I have to attempt to recoup, and I have to
Mm,
charge some, I have to put it out in a way that I can get paid again, back for it. And usually that means Kickstarter.
gotcha. Gotcha. Um, so yeah, man. So Werewolf Frankenstein, you guys have already um this hasn't launched on Kickstarter yet, right? Or at least at the time of recording.
No, Werewolf Frankenstein was a year ago.
Okay.
So that came out on Kickstarter originally, and then a month in a week or so,
Hmm.
the version that you're looking at now, the Zombie Love Studios version, which has a different cover and some bonus material that obviously didn't appear in the previous edition. So that'll be in some comic shops. Now, if you're interested,
Hmm.
talk to your comic shop as quickly as possible. Google, hit Google. I see a few stores listing it on there, but the print run is going to be extremely extremely low
Mm,
because you know just for a number of reasons.
yeah.
Print run on that is going to be super low, but if you're in the LA area, or want to call and do a mail order, if the Collectors Paradise
Mm,
stores here in LA have um, we'll have copies of the Kickstarter version, which I haven't seen. I haven't gotten the printed version of the Zombie Love version, but I think the paper stock is a little bit higher um, on the Kickstarter version, as it should be, because the Kickstarter version is more expensive and more. Uh, it's a you're really getting in on the ground floor of the whole thing.
right.
The Zombie Love version is more of like a mass market, even though there are fewer copies of it. It's like a, you know it's essentially, not a retread, but it's just like bringing it to a different audience that is not the same Kickstarter audience. You understand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So um, so yeah, it's a oh so but the thing that I am launching very soon,
Mm,
if not already, depending on when you listen to this, folks out there, is the Kickstarter for Bride of Werewolf Frankenstein, which is the sequel to Werewolf Frankenstein, and that'll have tiers where you could get one of each book, and one of copies of other books I've done, like All Negro Comics, and um, Fearless Future, which was like another comic I did on Kickstarter, like a decade ago at this point. It's sort of like, you know, uh, short sci-fi horror.
Mm,
inspired, like basically like Black Mirror short stories essentially.
got you. So
But it was pre Black Mirror, by the way. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
nice. You're good. So with Werewolf Frankenstein, right, doing the Kickstarter version and then doing a sort of wider direct market release with Zombie Love. One, why the wider direct market release? Which I guess we can follow dollar signs, right? But I'm sure there's other answers as well. And then why Zombie Love?
Okay, yeah, no, I can answer the why zombie love part very easy
Mm,
because I begged Rodney Barnes to do me a favor and let me please publish this book for through kicks through Diamond through direct market. I'm an editor on Philadelphia and a few other books of his. So we already had I already knew him. It was
mm,
just like, hey, I have this book that fits with your brand because it's check obviously check out all the books that Zombie Love Studios puts out. They're very good. They're the Blackula book is fantastic.
mm,
And it's a super nice is a super great the printing is fantastic. Just from a physical point, as an object.
yeah.
But Werewolf Frankenstein really fit into the whole aesthetic. And to get into the second part of the question, it's like why do it? It's like it's not really a dollar signs thing because I think
Mm,
I haven't fully done the math, but I think I'm like maybe losing money on this. But like I have to. So the Kickstarter audience is an amazing audience, and I love that audience, and I will I will try to do as many Kickstarters as I possibly can. Um, but it's a different audience than the direct market audience. The Wednesday
yeah.
audience is, the comic shop audience is just different,
Hmm.
and personally, who knows if I haven't seen anyone say different, but to me, there's not really a lot of overlap.
Mm,
So, this book that I did on Kickstarter is, I think it's a great book, but I think it would speak to that, again, and um, getting back into my like all that learning I did the 10,000 hours I did in Marvel Comics, like the book, Werewolf Frankenstein for good or ill, like it really does feel like a Marvel comic. Like it
mm,
has that same sort of cadence and the visual language. Like it does feel like a Marvel comic. You know what I mean? So I think I wanted to see what it would if it would speak to that audience like I thought it like I know it will,
mm.
and we'll find out when it comes out. The first weekend of October. But it's a it's an exercise in determining how legit like is do I how much of an audience do I have really,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one thing about it, right? Like, and I, I, I talk to creators. I'm blessed to be able to talk to creators like from completely opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Like, I'll talk to people who are working at Marvel and DC, and then I'll talk to people who are like just selling comics out of their garage, and then they're on tour for half of the year. Um, and it's true that it's like two different worlds that don't really cross paths often at all. Like,
Yeah.
I had Marcus Williams on, who did Tuskegee Airs with Greg Burnham, and he just did I Lie Popeye that just came out this week as we're recording this. Um, well, after coming out in different formats before, right? But like that's the first of like the convention homies that I've seen that I was able to just grab a book of theirs at the comic shop, right? And I follow stuff weekly, and the the amount of things that I miss out on because they are only on Kickstarter, whether it was just it didn't align with my budget for the time because it's like we only had 30 days or whatever, or I just didn't see it, like it's interesting though, like how much that stuff seems so far from each other, even though it's all comics. But
Yeah.
to your point though, this does look and feel like a direct market comic. Like there's sort of a culture that crowdfunded comics kind of have after a while, um, which is not to speak ill of any of them, or to
Yeah.
unjustly praise anything
Yeah.
that's
It's
in the
not a value
direct
judgment
market.
that we're making.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. Um, but there's definitely like a different feel. Um, and this does feel like it does have that sort of potential. Like, can a kid pick this up? I say a kid. Would someone pick this up and be like, oh, snap, let me take this and see what it's all about, right? Like, and so to give it that opportunity at retail is cool.
Thanks. Yeah. And, the numbers are in. I'm kind of impressed with what it did. Because, like, we're all very small operations, you know what I mean? And I think that's only going to become exacerbated as time goes on. But
Hmm.
everyone is their own little mom and pop store. I'm just one guy. I don't have the budget for a lot of press or somebody to do email blasts or any of that stuff. And Zombie Love is the same way. It's sort of like as Rodney gets out there and talks about it to his audience, and that's about it. Like
Hmm.
so essentially, what I'm trying to say is we did not we did no marketing for this book, but I'm pretty impressed with the numbers in the current climate. I'll just say
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think coming out in October is going to help for sure, right? Like, um, Halloween Comic Fest is not too long after that. So hopefully there's still some copies around, that kids can stumble on when they walk in with their cosplayer that day. Um, so definitely looking up. Things are looking up, from my vantage point. Uh, a week out from air date, but we're about a month out right now. So that's going to be cool to see how the reaction is.
Yeah, I love October. I love the whole like Halloween season. Like I'm always trying to stretch it as far as it'll go. So like, catch me watching, horror movies and starting in September and I take it all the way to like, essentially like Christmas basically. Um but it is yeah, I mean obviously like the the Zombie Love version dropping, early October, but then also the Kickstarter happening kind of concurrently, which is a little bit by design, even though I'm sort of like loosey goosey with the actual timeline, but like I wanted them to sort of maybe hopefully sort of like feed into each other. It's
Hmm.
in some way. We'll see if that helps or if it hurts. That's the other thing. Like a big component of being a writer, whatever, is like you really are generating your own stuff,
Hmm.
and Kickstarter, like we've been saying, like it's its own beast, and it requires like this other sort of skill set that like again I'm very glad that I have all this editorial experience because it's like uh I would not be able to think as analytically and be able to execute all that stuff because it's very much not the writing. It's like a totally different thing.
Right.
So we'll see basically.
Sure. So, um, I somehow completely skipped my mind to ask, what is the premise of Werewolf Frankenstein? For those who may be walking into their comic shop next week and see it on the shelf.
Oh, okay. I mean, the premise. I always joke that the premise is, what if Frankenstein was also a werewolf? Like that is it, right? But it's essentially, um, you know, Frankenstein. Oh, again, and we've been saying Frankenstein this whole time. We know that it's Frankenstein's monster. We understand that, but it's just faster to say Frankenstein. But like
Right.
he is he is an undead patchwork person or creature, let's say, right, that desires humanity, right? And he gets in a fight with a wolf man. This is all like pre-story that we get through like
Mhm.
on page one essentially. I stole the opening to All Star Superman for the first page. just to get through it quickly. Because again, it's like a story we all know, but like
Mhm.
here's all the bits you need you should be cognizant of. But he's gets into a fight with a wolfman. The wolfman bites him because a number of times, and because he's a patchwork, he's pieces of body put together. He doesn't become a werewolf overnight. Just just his arm turns into a werewolf. Just his cheek turns into a werewolf. That type of thing.
Mhm.
And as the contiguous pieces rub up against each other, and the lycanthropy sort of starts spreading from limb to limb, organ to organ, he becomes more. Uh, I would say actually he becomes less human, right? He becomes more of a beast,
Mhm.
and this is obviously antithetical to his desires, right? He craves humanity, or to be seen as like a true a true human.
Mhm.
And so he is going around from using Dr. Frankenstein's old uh, um, address book or whatever you want to call it. Like he's going around to other scientists in the scientific community and essentially forcing them to uh, uh, to operate on him, to cure his werewolfism. So a lot of Hulk DNA in there.
Mhm.
Going around searching for a cure. Tragically wishing he was a normal person, wanting normal life, normal relationships, but always being too far away from it. And then he in the first book he interacts with a specific doctor, and it sort of falls apart from there. It's not
Mhm.
like I said, like it's tragic, but it's don't worry, you don't need any hankies for this. But it doesn't go his way, we'll say. And yeah, and so that's what the first book is about, and the second one just sort of continues on that path where he interacts with another doctor in a totally different way. So like the doctors, I think I set it up in the first few pages, but like there are like three or four specific doctors that he's going to go try to meet, and he meets one in the first book. He'll meet a second in the second book, and then we'll see what happens from there. But
Mhm.
that is the like cadence of the what these stories are.
Nice, nice, nice. And you said this new project. This is Bride of Werewolf Frankenstein. So we're gonna have Werewolf Frankenstein and Bride of Werewolf Frankenstein as two separate series, or is this like issue two?
It's essentially issue two. It's
Okay.
so each issue is oversized. It's you know 40 40 art pages plus some additional bits. I stole they call them we call them data pages, but they're not. They're ancillary material pages from
Mhm.
my time on Krakoa. So that's in there, and it's a continuing story, but I tried to make it where if for whatever reason you just got Bride of Werewolf Frankenstein and not the first one, you wouldn't be lost or confused.
Mhm.
Um, and that's a function of the Kickstarter thing of it all, right? Like I
Yeah.
need to be able to do these books in a way that they are. I mean, I'm saying I'm doing it the way I would want to do it, even though plenty of
Mhm.
people do like just number two, number three, and number four every
Mhm.
6 months, 3 months, whatever however they're able to do them. But me personally, I kind of like that they stand alone a little bit,
Mhm.
not a little bit. I do go out of my way to like try to make them feel self-contained, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's definitely a continuing thing where this of Werewolf Frankenstein will be number two, and then I already have the idea for what the third one's going to be, but it's just like way too early to talk about it. But if people like it, which I don't want to I'll knock on wood, but like it seems like people are enjoying it. Like I'm going
Mhm.
to keep doing them.
Nice. Nice. So extending this whole Halloween and horror movie season. Uh, do you think you'll get tired of it and come March?
I don't think so. I think I forget when I think that I did the first one because of oh the first one wasn't even done until was done around I didn't actually no, that's not true. I'm misremembering that actually. Never mind. Forget all that. But uh by March I'll be working on the next one to be ready for, the following October essentially,
Yeah.
That's sort of the nice thing about being able to like having the like muscle memory of like being able to put comics in motion.
Hmm.
Like I have been like, you know, I know that if I'm, I've been working on Bride for some time now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so that'll continue. And then I also have some other concepts that are also will hopefully be out there, either by March or in the spring or earlier than that, hopefully. But it's it's never a bad time to keep working on comics in my book. So
For sure. Well, look, that seems like a perfect point to put a pin in this conversation. We're gonna have to make this a quarterly appearance because you got so many projects, and it seems like we talk about one at a time. So that's totally fine with me. You're welcome back anytime, of course. Um, so the Bride of Werewolf Frankenstein, we're not sure as of recording when it's gonna go live, but I'm going to make sure by the time this episode goes live, you'll have a link to that campaign that you guys can check out in the show notes and the description of this video. But in the meantime, where can they follow you if they're looking to hear from you?
I mean, my website is a good place to start. Crob.info.
Yeah.
That's like, I keep links to stores that have my books and um, that's a good place to start. But also, Instagram, Chris Robinson. It's a very popular name, so I had to go extra long on that one. Or, you know, X. I'll get around to checking X again before this comes out. But I'm there as Chris Robinson. So like, if you just search my name and maybe throw the word comics in there if necessary, I'm very findable. I would say.
Nice, nice. Well, again, if you're listening to this, links to Chris's information are all down in the show notes, so you don't have to look far. Um, did you have anything else you wanted to tease or anything before we get out of here?
I mean, yeah, I'll throw this out there just because it's the last it's already a campaign I've been sort of like stealth pushing, but like there's another comic that I'm very excited about that is becoming more and more like I'm sort of like I'm sort of like in the I'm I'm competing with like real life
Mhm.
essentially like getting this out in time, but like it's called Commander in Chains, and it's about a president who is framed for murder, and the campaign for that is already up on Kickstarter. So if
Mhm.
you just search it, the like the notify me page is there. But
Okay.
if that sounds like if you like Air Force One, Con Air, like that type of like '90s like over the top stuff, like
Uh-huh.
that is this is a book you're gonna want to read, and it's I call it like if Snake Plissken and Captain America had a baby, it's like that kind of like action set piece type stuff. So anyway, like I said, I always got something moving, and it's all comics are dope, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, Chris, thank you again for your time. Thank you for being the first to respond to my "You're always welcome." So behind the scenes, I didn't even have to reach out to Chris. Chris was like, "Hey, by the way, I just booked a spot. We're going to talk about this." And I was like, "Hey, I told you were welcome. I appreciate you believing me." So thanks for coming back, man. This was cool.
hey, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
no problem at all. So, well,
Awesome.
that's going to do it for this episode of Comics Are Dope. Thank you guys for listening. And after you're done listening, Go outside, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.